I'm going to hand straight over to Nuala, and Nuala is going to do a very great job of introducing it. And thanks, Nuala.
Thanks very much, Michelle. And hi, everybody, and lovely to see you in the room and online. Nuala McGuinn is my name, for those of you who don't know me, with the Director of the Centre for Adult Learning and Professional Development. So for those of you who are familiar with the Centre, you know that our trademark or landmark courses are around the flexible professional mode of delivery. And I suppose our history goes back on this flexible mode, way back almost to 1999, when we were running certificates in training and education in the old-fashioned mode of, posting out materials to students, having the workshops in community centres, in a few hotels, receiving assignments back by the post, and they'd be stacked piled high underneath desks and date marking them to say, yeah, they had turned them in on time. Fast forward then to summer of 2020, where we, in those intervening years, have developed lots of different skills around blended and some fully online courses. And then in the summer 2020, we were just coming out of the first lockdown. We made a very swift decision at the Centre to move fully online for the following September. And we were coming from a really great design base at that time. And also at that time, this research project that Sheila and Valerie have been involved in was just, starting off, and it was to focus on the early childhood studies area. But because we're moving into this really overall fully online model for all of our courses, it quickly became a much, much bigger project. And so the story that Sheila and Bonnie will tell today is about how that evolved. And I think we kept with very strong design principles for what is now a fully online teaching, learning and assessment model. And I think what has come out of the project is some really great experiences for students and also some great learning for our teaching staff. And that's the story that will be told today. So I'm just going to hand it over really quickly to Dr. Sheila Garrity. Sheila is the Academic Director for Early Childhood Studies Programmes at the Centre. Dr. Bonnie Long is our multimedia content developer, and Valerie Kelly is our administrative support, supporting students through this process, which is a really critical piece for us. So without further ado, I'll hand you over to Sheila and Bonnie.
Thank you so much, Nuala. It's lovely to be here. It's wonderful to have people online joining us, and it's so nice to have people in the room talking to actual faces that can react and smile and maybe not smile. So yeah, thank you, Nuala, for that introduction. So we'll jump right in. For people who are QR enabled, you can access the report here at this link, and it's been put up on Erin, and it's on the blog of the Centre for Adult Learning. So we're here to report on the research that we undertook, as Nuala said, through the 2020-2021 academic year, if I reflect back. And this is just an overview of the presentation this afternoon, and we'll touch on this idea of silver linings. There were silver linings through that global pandemic period. So I'll just introduce you a little bit to the Centre for Adult Learning. So Nuala gave us a great visual of the assignments coming in and stacked under desks. For people who don't know, the Centre is a dynamic learning space. It's providing educational and upskilling opportunities to adult learners for over 50 years now. There's an extensive array of professional, part-time and evening courses, from standalone CPD to micro-credentials to awards at certificate, diploma, degree, and master's level. During the year we were doing this research, there were approximately 2,000 learners enrolled in courses at the Centre. The students who we engage with can best be described as adult learners, and as such, they can be characterized as being focused on their professional development and the opportunities that provides them, but they're also considered time poor, and they're typically employed. While they're studying, they often have care duties, care responsibilities, and other responsibilities outside of their study and their work. So while they have those challenges, that doesn't deter their determination. And our understanding of this lived reality really influences how we approach our work and the duty of care that we have for our students. So very much we feel that creates a democratic and equality-based atmosphere in the Centre, inclusion-driven ethos that underpins the work that we do. So I'll just tell you briefly about our early childhood studies and practice degree offered through the Centre. So it's offered in a flexible blended learning approach with exit awards at year 1 and 2, and then a full degree at the end of 4 years. It's supporting people who are in the workforce, working in early childhood settings, who want to upskill to a degree. And our learners have gone on to real leadership positions across the field and across the country. So we're really proud of their achievements and being part of supporting them in that way. The early childhood field has become an area of increasing policy attention from the Irish state. And the first 5 whole of government strategy set out the goal of achieving a graduate-led workforce for the sector. Part of that strategy was a new professional award criteria and guidelines for early childhood educators. So the aim of the guidelines was to ensure that the content of degrees in the field support people, the formation of early childhood educators, really with an aim of raising the quality of early learning experiences for young children. Part of that process, we reviewed the degree we had here in Galway, and we made amendments and additions to what we were offering. We submitted a new degree, the Early Childhood Education and Professional Practice BA, to the Qualifications Advisory Board in 2021, and that was approved and is going to be starting in this coming September. But during that period of redevelopment, we were looking at the content, but we were also looking at our model of delivery. So we had a blended learning model, but we really used Blackboard as a static tool, a repository of material and resources and assignments for the students. So we were looking at the blended learning model. We were thinking about maybe moving to more online delivery because we do have students all around the country who are taking our course and international students as well. And we also wanted to look at using the space in a much more dynamic way. So I'm going to get Bonnie now to join me and to share the work that she's been doing for the last while in kind of providing those structures and supports.
Okay, so first I'm going to talk to you about the Blackboard module template that we have in the Center for Adult Learning. So with our adult learners, we find that a lot of our students returning to learning or coming to third level learning for the first time are not used to using BLE or Blackboard. So accessing those materials online can be unfamiliar and sometimes frustrating for our students if we're not providing a Blackboard module that is well laid out and easy for them to navigate. So when I first started in the Center for Adult Learning in 2016, one of the first things Neil asked me to do was to come up with a template that all of our tutors in all of our programs could follow for their Blackboard module. And this was driven by student evaluations from previous years where students said that they had difficulty finding content on Blackboard, and that what they were finding between modules was that things weren't in the same place, and sometimes, you know, they couldn't find what they were looking for, and they would get very frustrated by that. So I went to work researching and looking into how best to guide this Blackboard module template. And so looking through the research and specifically looking at the best practice rubrics for online learning, online courses on the BLE. So some of the 3 I found most helpful were Blackboard's Exemplary Course Program rubric and the Quality Online Course Initiative rubric and the Quality Matters rubric. So I used those to come up with how we would do things and why we were doing, or why we were asking our tutors to do specific things. The guiding principle underpinning the template is to provide consistent and easy navigation for our students by enhancing the usability and the findability of the content on their Blackboard. So here's our basic module template. It's the main menu, and it's a very scaled back main menu, and we ask tutors not to add extra things to the main menu. So everything that they put up there should fit within these 3 sections that we have there. And we ask them as well on the content and on the folders to write instructions in a conversational tone. This adds to the teaching presence in the online module and also helps students to find things more easily. They don't have to go digging into folders to find things. It lets them know on the outside what is there. So our first section has the announcements and the module information links on it. The announcements are going to be updated throughout the semester. And then the module information is kind of an overview of the module where they can find a table that has all of the assessments for the module and the weighting and the due dates. And they will find a welcome message from the tutor and a table that has the lecture dates as well as the course and university policies and tutor expectation module outline document. We kind of ask all of our tutors to create this document following a template that we have given them that gives the students all of this overarching information that they need for the module. And we ask them to have this populated before the students start. So it's something that they can come in on the first day, they can find all of that information very easily. In the second section, we have the learning materials and the assessment links. So all of the content that the students are going to interact with to learn the content on the module should be in the learning materials folder. And that's going to be a lot of information. So we ask the tutors to chunk the content or organize it either by weeks or units or topics, whatever works best with their subject area. And then within each of those weekly or unit folders that they have a consistent subfolder layout. So they might have a reading folder and an activities folder and a multimedia folder within each of those main folders. And it gives students a clear learning path and lets them know that each week or each topic, they're going to have certain things that they need to interact with. And then the assessment folder, they're going to have that table at the top again that gives them the outline for all of the assessments that they have in their module, assignment briefs, submission links, assessment criteria and rubrics, any policies that deal with assessment, and then referencing support materials. So we ask all of our tutors and our students to use UL Cite It Right, 4th edition, Harvard Guide to Referencing, and we supply it to them there. And we also have some interactive online content to help them learn to do the referencing. So that's provided for them in that folder. And then the third section are the course tool links. So all of those links you can add to your Blackboard module. Are like the Zoom meetings, the virtual classroom, the discussion board. We ask them to put those down there so they don't have to go looking for those anyplace else. And so that's it for that module. So most of our modules programs were blended learning before the pandemic. I think 89% of our courses were blended learning. So we were using Blackboard more as a repository, like Sheila said. So things were there, go ahead and it's on Blackboard, go on and find it yourself. But this template is designed based on online learning principles, so best practice in online learning. So it lent itself well to when we had to pivot to online learning. It's like, yes, we have the rules, this is what we're supposed to be doing. So Sheila, back to you.
Thank you.
Okay.
So I'm going to take you through our research project now, and how we worked with the tools that we had and the supports that we had. So I'll bring you back to where we left off, reviewing our BA and looking at our delivery, thinking about the blended learning approach, thinking about moving to fully online, more of a fully online model. And thanks to Ian and the team at CELT for timely circulation of the STLE fund. This was in the autumn of 2019. So this fund was available, and one of the strands, teaching and learning in a digital world, really reflected the conversations we were having in the center at the time about making that shift for some of our modules in our new BA. So we applied to the fund under the project of designing a bespoke model of online module delivery for early childhood educators, and we were successful and received a small sum of money, and we commenced that project in 2020. So any good research design begins with a question. Our question was, what are the experiences and perspectives of students and tutors in the early childhood studies programs based on the fully online model of teaching and learning? And we had a pragmatic research design which focused more on the research question and effective means of answering that question rather than leading from theoretical or epistemological positionings. There was theory, we did underpin our work with theory, but that wouldn't have been the driving focus of the research. So we designed our project over 3 phases. The first phase was early in 2020, the design phase. So we had our Blackboard module template that Bonnie took us through, and we began to explore the research and literature on best practices for digital pedagogies. We had our team, Bonnie, myself, and Valerie Kelly, who's our program administrator, and we invited one of our module tutors, Linda Smith, who had demonstrated a capacity for being much more innovative and dynamic in the virtual space with the students to come on board. So we designed a module guide, as Bonnie said. We had the template, we designed that module outline document, and decided we were going to pilot this with one module in the coming academic year. And then we would survey participants, engage with our tutors, and the third phase would then be to revise the model based on that informative feedback. We achieved ethical approval and commenced that research. And then you all know what happened. So, yes, even the best laid plans go awry. So here was, I went looking for doing the slides, and I thought this was a really interesting tweet. We'll be closed from 6 p.m. this evening on the 12th of March until Monday, the 30th of March. That was really optimistic, wasn't it? So, as you all know, we went into closure mode, campus closure, but of course the university wasn't closed. So we really had to scale up the model for the coming autumn, as Nuala referenced at the beginning. Bonnie developed a whole range of workshops that she delivered through webinars online, which really modeled how we hoped that tutors would actually engage with the students when they're moving into the online teaching. So we had those tools, we had the template, the module outline document, and Linda Smith set up her Blackboard module early on in the summer so the tutors could look at that. We could look and see, what does that template mean when you actually have it populated as a module? The module planning document set out the students' learning experiences in what we call learning cycles or learning blocks, and I'm going to touch on those a little bit later in the presentation. So not only did we scale up the model, but we also had an opportunity to scale up the research. So we resubmitted our ethical approval to then include all of the programs, all of the modules in the Early Childhood Studies program. So we had 21 modules and 17 tutors and about 100 students in the program that year. And we collected data in June of 2021. So I'm going to ask Bonnie to talk about, so that's the research piece, but we had, a strong basis of a conceptual underpinning to our approach. Take over again, Bonnie.
So in the literature and the report, we lay out the different kinds of concepts and theories that are underpinning why we created the model the way we did. And the three things that we kept coming back to over and over again as we were trying to decide how this would be implemented with the students were andragogy, social constructivism, and access and inclusion. So andragogy has been around for over 100 years, and it's about the art and science of helping adults learn. So it's teaching adults as opposed to pedagogy, which is about teaching students. We do use that term interchangeably at all levels of education. But Knowles wrote and did a lot of research in the 70s and 80s and beyond about how best to help adult learners. And he came up with some his adult learning theory that is also a learner-centered teaching methodology. For us, it helped us focus on the characteristics and the concerns of our adult learners and how best we could help them to engage with the learning. So Knowles feels that adult learners are more self-directed. They bring experience and knowledge to the learning situation. They have a readiness to learn that is usually related to their social role or occupation. They're performance-centered. They want to learn things that are going to help them to perform their role. And they value knowledge that is immediately applicable. So these are things that we kept in mind. We also kept in mind the challenges that the adult learners are dealing with. So like Sheila said, they're time poor. They're usually balancing responsibilities between family and work and school. And even though Knowles said that their adult learners are more self-directed, there are definitely times when they need more instruction and more help with interacting with the content, and especially in an online learning situation. So a lot of them wouldn't be familiar with the technologies that they need to use for online learning. And some of the studies say that they come to adult learning or online learning with a lack of confidence in their ability to successfully participate. So providing support for them is a very important part of the model. So the next concept is social constructivism. And Vygotsky's cultural psychological approach that holds that there is a social aspect to learning, and this is integral to online learning. So most of the seminal online learning frameworks are based on social constructivism and getting people to talk with each other and to learn from each other. So online learning emphasizes this. We knew we had to include this in the model. Collaborative technology like discussion boards, video conferencing tools can provide a more collaborative, shared learning environment for the online learners. And they also support interaction between the student and the instructor. So that's very important. And then dealing with the instructors, community of practice is also based on social constructivism. So we found that the social learning was very important for our tutors. And this was something that kind of came out of the study. It wasn't something that we went into it with. Golden holds that informal, ongoing collegial support can help develop relevant, specific online teaching skills for tutors who are new to online teaching. And our tutors kind of developed their own community of practice. So we had several online webinars, training sessions on Zoom and Collaborate Ultra and different things, and they started getting together on their own online to practice. Some of us will be students and some of us will be tutors, and they really got a good feel for using the online technologies by supporting each other, as well as some email chains that kind of developed organically, where one person would send an email out to all the other tutors and then and tell them how things went in their online session and let people who weren't teaching yet know what went well and what didn't go well, excuse me. So they really did kind of create this community of practice amongst themselves that they found very helpful. And then finally we have access and inclusion. So local and national strategies call for, thank you. Materials and learning experiences to be created for students that are accessible and inclusive in design. And for us, Universal Design for Learning framework really helped us to include those things into the design and with our tutors as well. And universal design is based on the idea that by designing content and assessments so they're accessible for a few, that they're being made accessible for all. And CAST calls for tutors to include multiple means of engagement, representation, and action and expression in the content and in their activities that they're using with their students. So these are the things that underlie the model for us. So this is the first part of our model. We have our conceptual underpinnings holding it up. We have andragogy, social constructivism.
Great, thank you, Bonnie. Back to Sheila. So I'm going to present some of our research findings. I'm really just going to touch on them, but the report, you know, if you're the data head here in the room or online, the report is there and you can have a look at all of our research. I should have said on that previous slide, the gray speech bubble was supposed to be a cloud with a silver lining. You know, I'm not artistic. But so that upscaling that we had to engage with, it allowed us to, you know, the silver lining was that we had a much more robust data from a much larger cohort of participants that we feel gave us a really strong underpinning to the model that we're presenting today. So I'm going to present the findings along the 5 objectives to the research study. And as I said, I'm just going to really touch on some of the key findings. So the first objective was to understand the experiences of students engaged in the fully online teaching and learning model. And 80% of our student participants said that they found our learning block or learning cycle approach really clear and easy to follow. So I'm just going to give you a snapshot of what that might look like. And again, not the most artistic when I'm designing things on my PowerPoint slides. So in the early childhood program, we roll out our modules in a consecutive manner, one following the other. And again, that's about the students, their busy lives, and while it's an intense period of learning, it's much more achievable for them than juggling several modules at a time. So each is structured around a 6 to 8 week block, as one module is waning, the next module is picking up, so there is some overlap. During this approach, what we decided to do was the one module that was delivered through the year, so that's typically a work-based module or in final year the research dissertation, they had interspersed blocks of time between the other modules. So they might have 5 modules running on that cycle with the blocks coming in between. So the students found it, easy and clear and liked the framework of that. The live sessions were, no one's surprised, a critical element of the learning experience. Recording those live sessions and posting them then as a learning tool for the students to go back and review was a really welcome part of the other learning resources that we posted. So we had, screencast podcasts, as Bonnie has talked about. They were all organized and up on Blackboard. Students commented about the variety of assignment types and approaches and the variety of resources that we posted. A large percentage missed on-campus face-to-face engagement. Again, that's not a surprise to anyone, but they really valued the efforts that we went to support that social element of learning. Our second objective was to understand the experience of the tutors and their engagement with the fully online teaching and learning model. So the tutors welcomed the mix of universal and targeted support. So those webinars that all the tutors could attend right across the center, and then targeted support where tutors were struggling maybe with a particular tool or approach. We asked them to list and rank the ones that they found most helpful. So viewing that populated Blackboard module that Linda Smith had set up was the most helpful. So that was really good to know that was a useful tool. The module outline document where they plotted out their approach was also ranked in their top 3, and the webinars that they attended. Just outside those top 3 was meeting with the program coordinator. So that was work that Valerie did, meeting one-to-one with the tutors just to help them make sense of Blackboard and all the potentials that were there. So the tutors in the early childhood program, for the most part, have been with the program for many years. We're really lucky we have a long-term group of tutors. Several of them teach across other institutions because they're part-time with us. And they have a wealth of knowledge and pedagogical expertise that they bring to the program. They also have their own style and their own approach. So while the tutors expressed, did I go ahead myself? And where am I now? This expressed, where am I? Here. So while the tutors expressed fidelity to the module, when we actually viewed their online spaces, we found wasn't not so much all the time. And again, that's that they had been using Blackboard for a number of years and developed habits and their own ways of going about it. So because the students had highlighted to us how important that consistency was, this was something that we really needed to address in the model. So our third objective was to understand the experience of tutors involved in training, and all the participants highlighted that they found the webinars were really helpful. They attended, their attendance, a range of webinars that were made available. We tried to do them at lunchtime so people who were working elsewhere could attend as well. And they actively used the wide range of resources. And again, coming onto that peer-led community of practice was really, really key. The peer sessions provided that space to learn from and with each other. I probably don't need to get into it because Bonnie's talked about it, but I love that quote, humor and solidarity. If you remember where we were in September, October of 2020, how challenging it was, and to think you could log on with a group of peers and have a laugh, and learn as you went. It was really heartwarming to see that was happening. Our fourth objective was trying to identify unique skills and knowledges and supports, maybe things we didn't think about. So again, we got quite positive feedback from the students who said that their class peers, the class reps, and the tutors provided a really important support for them. So really strong, again, that social presence, that connection with other people. The students said the resources and information really facilitated that pivot online. And while the majority of participants, 65%, said they felt confident to make that shift, there was still a significant cohort, about a third who felt they needed additional training. So it's important to be aware that not everybody was comfortable and confident to make that pivot. So asking the tutors about the skills and knowledge, majority felt that the temporal demands was a significant challenge. And again, we have to remember people were at home, they were dealing with personal issues, familial issues, and then this professional demand to shift to an online space. The majority followed the module design and thought it was not difficult to do that. When we asked about a whole range of other areas that are on the screen, I won't list them all off, but what was important was that we found there was trends and responses that revealed that the tutors who found one area difficult found all the other areas difficult or very difficult. If they found it somewhat easy, they tended to find the other areas. So that just highlighted to us that idea that, you know, some tutors very confident, happy to make that pivot, have the skills, and others need the more targeted support. The tutors rated the quality of support, so this was really, again, heartwarming that the work we were doing in that challenging time was helpful, extremely helpful, and at least somewhat helpful. The fifth objective then was to seek advice and recommendations on how to improve the model. So we asked the students to rate the items that they would like us to keep when we return to a blended learning model or to keep in an online model. And, you know, so really positive. And funny, the highest ranking was to keep no exams. So we shifted to all continuous assessment. None of the student participants wanted the return of exams, but, you know, they valued other elements of the model. We asked how we could fully online model be improved, and we had some qualitative responses there. So consistency in using Blackboard from tutors was there. There's no way to improve it. We need in-person lectures. So, you know, that's important. What was most enjoyable about the model? The students highlighted that they didn't have to travel. So people who were in Donegal or in Cork didn't have to drive up to Galway once a month. And then asking them again what aspects were most effective from a learning perspective. You know, the students really reminded us that we need to consider those the face-to-face, the the personal engagement. They talked about longer breakout sessions, more breakout sessions, more drop-in sessions online. This is the same, how could we, what was most important from a learning perspective. So I'm going to go on to the tutors then. We asked them about additional training and support to redesign the model. Again, the whole issue about time, feeling overwhelmed at the time and feeling alone and overwhelmed. Around additional supports, they talked, some of the feedback here was about that whole understanding of the approach from a pedagogical perspective, that we really focused on the what of shifting online, and we didn't have the space to just kind of pause and engage with what are the theories that are underpinning online teaching and learning. We include that now in our webinars, but at the time, it was just to get online. So important messages coming from both cohorts of participants, that consistency in module design. So the tutors liked the framework that we worked within, and the students really valued that between modules. You know, reflecting the universal design for learning, that we have a variety of resources, supports, and approaches to learning for the students, but also for training the tutors. Some people felt very well prepared to pivot, and we have to remember there's a cohort there who are not confident and need that one-to-one support. And then that social element of learning for the students and learning and developing for the tutors was really present. So I'm going to so we brought all of that content together to put it in a structured way of understanding how we were working. And I've lost my notes here, so I'm not going to worry about that too much. But we have three elements that we this was just a way of organizing a lot of what we've already presented in a way that helps us kind of think about how we approach it, who's responsible for it, ensuring that this work is attended to. So Bonnie already presented the conceptual underpinnings to the model, and I'm going to take you through what we were calling the constituent elements. So again, this was grouping, probably echoing what you've already heard in the presentation, so I might go quickly through some of this. So the manner in which the VLE is just curated and accessed has significant impact on the learner's experience. So it was really important that we had a structure for this. And again, you've heard all of these points from us before. So the consistency across modules, we have these three tools that we've talked about, but to try and check in on that fidelity piece with the tutors, we've designed a checklist where we're asking the tutors, once they're finished, before, and this is a back and forth with myself primarily in terms of planning their approach to the module, that they're checking to see have they met those elements of the fidelity to the model. So it's about findability and usability and all those pieces that we've talked about already. The tutors, right? You know, tutors are the face of the program. They're the face of the institution when they're out engaging with our students. And so it's our responsibility to ensure they can undertake their role well. And so at the beginning of the year now, you know, late August, we engage with the tutors and do an needs analysis. So we are identifying those people who are struggling in certain areas and need that additional support. And we do that through universal training, one-to-one training, and really encourage that this peer network is established at the beginning of the year. Then how do they take all of that information and roll it out in terms of presenting the module and delivering it to students? So we've kind of organized it. This is probably not rocket science, but we're just putting a structure on what we're doing, that period of module preparation where the tutors liaising with the key players, following their plans in terms of delivery, assessing, following the rubrics we have in the institution, timelines, giving really detailed feedback, and then that piece of oversight from the program team. And then a process of closing out the module where we reflect on what was successful, the challenges, and try to make changes for the next time. And then that piece around supporting the students. So, if we don't support them to engage with that online learning piece, they really struggle, as Bonnie's highlighted. So at the beginning of the year, we all have orientation sessions, but we ensure that there's elements in that are particularly dedicated to the online space. Returning students also need an orientation. There's fade on information about where do you find things, how do you engage, what are the policies. So it's important we do that too. And then through the year, it's not till the student actually realizes they need something, like accessing the library online or support services, that they then are saying, where is it? So at critical points, we do that reminder. And an important part of what we do is monitoring the student activity. So did they attend the online workshop? Have they submitted their reflective journal? And that's, again, a task that Valerie really keeps on top of. And then it's that check-in. Is there something going on? How can we support you? So those are our 4 elements that bring all those pieces together, we hope, we feel. I'm going to just really touch on this briefly about who the key supporting actors are. So it's important that we identify who are the people involved, what are our roles, and who do the tasks fall to ensure that there aren't gaps and that fidelity is achieved. So each person played a critical role. This is Bonnie, this is myself and Valerie, to ensure messages about the model are effectively communicated to those involved, the students and the tutors, and also providing a stopgap to ensure that fidelity. We all brought our own professional skills and we had particular roles, but I do know that within the team, there was quite a lot of overlap, quite a lot of blending of boundaries between what we did and a lot of collegial support in terms of ensuring tasks were done and sharing the workload. One of the things that's evolved is some of those areas that Bonnie mentioned at the beginning in the VLE that are standard across modules. We're trying to contribute more to the curation to eliminate some of the time pressures on tutors. So where there's standard things across the VLE, we're curating more to get the tutors up and going. So those are our key supporting actors. And this is our overall model. So the image represents the fully conceptualized model, which has emerged through our research project. It's drawing on best practice knowledge, relevant concepts and theories, and underpinned by empirical data. And we feel it captures what we were trying to articulate in the work that we were doing. It was developed under a period of global stress and global pandemic, and the opportunity, though, to reflect and refine the module through this project, we feel really has given us a strong grounding in what we're presenting today. With any project, there's limitations. I won't go into those for the time that we have, but I just like to close the module by just reflecting on close the presentation by reflecting on a few points. So the research was undertaken during that highly challenging period that we can all remember, or maybe some of us have blocked it out. However, that expansion really allowed us to enlarge the participant cohort, capture much more robust data, and we feel that it's given us a stronger basis on which to present this model, our silver lining, as we call the report. In the decades since the early childhood program commenced, there were efforts to increase our engagement with online tools provided through the VLE, and I'd say the move was slow and incremental rather than holistic and embraced. We remained much more static in our use of the VLE and remaining overly reliant on the occasional in-person on-campus sessions. So the catalyst of the global pandemic pushed us to expand our boundaries and move out of our comfort zones. Another silver lining, you could say, so that we are much more comfortable. What we previously considered unattainable or unachievable, we're now embracing in terms of our engagement with our students. And as such, we have a debt of gratitude to to the tutors and students and the rest of the team at the center. Undertaking the research project has provided us with an important opportunity to reflect on our own approach to teaching and the values that we bring to our teaching experience, to examine what underpins our approach in the center and in the early childhood programs. Developing responsive, robust, and relevant upskilling opportunities in partnership with other key stakeholders remains the goal in the center. And doing so from a duty of care to learners, recognizing their challenges and supporting the attainment of their goals through respectful and democratically informed approaches continues to be at the core of our work. We believe the outcomes of this study, a robust model of teaching and learning, will offer improved experiences. We argue that these experiences will be less isolating for learners and for tutors, more dynamic and interactive in design. And with any model, we welcome opportunities for this approach to be applied in the lived world of academia. And through this report, we've presented what we think is an initial iteration of a model, one that we expect will continue to evolve and improve over time. So thank you very much for joining us online and for being here today. And we're really happy to chat with you more and take questions.
Thank you. Thanks, Jeanette. Anyone online wants to comment? I split the view here so that we can see our gallery. Hello.
I'd just like to point out that one of the participants was one of our brave tutors, Sinead McLaughlin. Give us a wave there, Sinead.
Can she hear us?
Oh, there we go. Lovely. So, yeah, we're happy to take questions from the room, from the screen.
Go ahead.
That's right.
Suzanne, thanks.
Yeah, Sheila, just to kind of, I suppose, and maybe just ask your opinion on this. Presumably, there's a lot of, information and ideas that you've acquired from this project that are probably applicable across the whole institution, rather than just for, programs that are operating from the Centre for Adult Learning and Professional Development.
Yes, there would be, and certainly during that period of time, I know Bonnie was doing webinars to lots of units beyond the Centre for Adult Learning. I'm based in the centre, but I'm also in the School of Political Science at the time. And I did webinars, not webinars, but informal sessions with tutors there to help them shift online. But I mean, the report is there, and we'd be really happy to sit down with groups who are trying to shift more online or make better use of the blended learning space to share with them what we've learned and what we've learned through trial and error, through lots of ways. Yeah, thanks.
I mean, following up on that, I mean, looking at what you presented, then it looks that one of the obvious things is be well organised, because it looks very well structured, very well organised, planned and supported, and I suspect that an awful lot of other people trying to cope with the pandemic and deal with multiple kind of demands, probably just trying to do as much as they could and maybe much more fragmented, in terms of other programs and courses. So
Yeah, and I think
having a good structure, good organisation, sequencing the modules, doing all that sort of thing is obviously good. Yeah.
I think the support element though is really critical, Ian. So having a structure that you hand to a tutor and say, try this, do this, we'd like you to present this way. And then when they go, well, yeah, so that you're just doing that check-in and that community of practice. It started off by when Zoom was, I think it was Collaborate Ultra, we wanted to practice how do you load up videos. So we organized a Collaborate Ultra session ourselves. And then we started to do it once a week. And then the email thread, which was the first tutor's module who was up, we said, let us know.
Yeah.
So we got the email where she shared what went well, what were the challenges, and then the next week somebody added their experience. So we had this rich thread where we were sharing and learning, and then we had the online sessions together. Yeah, it was a really positive piece of the learning.
Putting the teaching staff into the shoes of the learner and experiencing it, I think that's a big point.
Yeah, it was, yeah. So we would alternate being the tutor in the session and being the student, so you could see what the student would be seeing. Yeah.
I guess for the other courses, there's so much freedom given to the individual academics and how they structure the Blackboard modules and how they put stuff, and the students are taking modules from different lectures. It's always an issue.
Yeah.
You know, there's lack of consistency.
That's something that we need to do in the centre, because
Yeah, because
we're a
you're,
small group,
yeah, and
you know.
you're hiring in tutors for particular courses, and it's much more structured than that. Maybe an academic department would be a bit more.
But there's space for tutors to, and that's what we've had to identify. So in some ways restricting the academics to do this structure, but we're also saying there's still lots of space for you to bring your own style. It's your lecture style, it's your screencast, it's your podcast, it's all the tools that you develop. So there's lots of space for the ego to come through and the style and the knowledge to be delivered. But if you do it in this way, the students, it's about the student engagement. That's, yeah.
It's interesting, a good few of the things you did actually address probably the best practice advice we start with, and that's largely ignored.
Yeah.
And then, as well as that, the subsequent feedback from students.
Yeah.
And a simple example is the template for the module. And it wouldn't have to be as simple as you set out in a way, or probably the normal learners we have. But students still complain about difficulty finding material because everybody's doing it differently. Communication, sort of we get some 1 week communication from a lecturer comes in by way of Blackboard announcement. Another week it's just something said in class. Another week it's an email.
Yeah.
So they can't find, when they're going back trying to find something, they can't find it.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of stuff in there. And the other thing too, as well as the design, the idea of sitting down and let's design things first and build rather than sort of start building and keep adding. It's simple, but
you're right. I mean, we've got those guidelines.
Yeah.
The difficulty is non-compliance with them, or
it is a nightmare trying to get. Another example would be talking about giving students information in good time. And I suspect that, for instance, partly because you've module sequenced, there is an issue with pile up of assessments. But even getting staff to do something as simple as filling in details on a shared Excel thing is very difficult. It's very difficult to get compliance with it, and it's a job that takes 10 minutes.
Yeah, and I wondered, do tutors realize the impact on the students, or lecturers don't realize? So that was something that we were hearing from the students. These are our challenges, and so we were able to articulate that to the tutors. We're asking you to do this not because we want to be bossy, but because we believe that the student experience will be enhanced. Yeah, so it's interesting to hear that that's.
So we came up with the tutor expectation form several years ago, and asking tutors, have all of that overarching information, the assessment and the lecture dates and things. They need to know that from day one. They're busy, they have families, they work. They need to be able to schedule that in and make sure that they're doing things on time and getting assignments in on time. So that for me, I'm like, where's your tutor expectation form? That should be there. Yeah.
That's something that falls to Valerie. She manages that calendar across the academic year. So that 6-week or 8-week cycle, she knows that major essay or that report or portfolio is coming due. So she'll liaise with the other tutor and say, another week, your due date can be the next week, and that just makes life. They're managing a lot.
Even in our experience in the PG Sarah, having Karen as the administrator and chase up makes a massive difference.
But definitely seeing the pinch points and avoiding those pinch points, because it avoids a lot of other issues that can occur because of that stress and overload.
I mean, then you have late assignments, you're chasing students who haven't submitted. Let's just avoid that in the planning, and hopefully,
integrity issues as well.
Yeah.
Any questions from the remote audience? You can just shout.
Do not saying thank you.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's
okay.
good. That's I'm watching the stream here, and I can see lots of people thumbs up.
Oh, lovely. That's great to know.
Just a quick comment, Ian, if I can. Janice here.
Yeah, we have a rule in Kelt that we don't allow anybody to say more of a comment than a question, but we'll bend it for you. Go ahead.
No, I just want to say the work that was done there is hugely helpful to the microcreds project development as well, because we're following the best practice that was, outcomes from this study. So just to congratulate the folks on that.
Thank you, Janice. It's great to know it's paying off. It's being applied already. You can give us feedback and we can tweak it and learn as we go. I mean, that's what it's all about. It's not a static, finished piece. It's the start of some of the next phase.
And apologies for having my camera. That's me. It's not that somebody's left, it's just that I've come here. Sorry. And I promised to tidy up.
So we're probably ready to wrap up, so.
I think Miller-
I have one last question.
Oh,
And it's kind of one for Ian, Sheila, and maybe Mairead. I'm just thinking about the model using the VLE and its very nice and systematic approach. How transferable will that be now to our new VLE? Just a general comment would be interesting.
It'll be transferable, it'll be fine.
You just need to maybe watch to see how deep your folders and
Yes.
subfolders are going.
Yeah.
Because most of the VLEs don't allow you to do
Go
deep
down.
foldering because
Yeah.
it's
That's like-
known to be really bad. for confusing.
Okay,
So it depends how many. I mean, if we had gone to Blackboard Ultra, you wouldn't have been able to go beyond one, I think.
okay.
But Canvas allows a little bit more.
Yeah,
But not
it'll,
much.
yeah.
But that's the
it'll-
only thing, that's
we
the
can-
small thing.
We can chat.
I think that, like for us, all we would need is being able to chunk that learning content, you know, that they
Yeah,
they have those stored.
you'll find some way
And
of
you know-
doing it on a page.
And you know, if you want to start playing with it now, you can get a free account on Canvas.
Anyway,
And
anybody
have
can.
one you can see. You know, you can start to kind of play around and see how you would, you know, structure things. Yeah.
But they're all very similar, really, so the basic principles will hold.
Great, yeah.
I mean, it gives you a little bit more flexibility in the content that you put up in terms of its look and feel and appearance. So you might want to
It's
think about
more
that. So, well, it's,
Tiles than.
well, no,
sizes
I
and
suppose all I mean
units.
is like in the content section, there's a lot more you can do with layout and stuff. So you might want to rein people's creativity in a little bit if you want
Yeah.
consistency. rather
I
than-
don't know, Magella just popped
I
up.
don't mean to do that's not fair. I can't
Magella.
read it.
Are you just there to say hello?
Oh, you're on mute.
I've no question, I just said I've been listening all along, it's very good.
Okay, great. Thanks very much. Thanks, Magella. And thanks everyone for joining us today. We'll sign off, I think.
Thank you very much.
Michelle should do that. Okay, thank you.
Stop the recording.